everyone, I hope that you guys are doing well. I wish that we could all be in class together, but unfortunately, due to the circumstances, we can't. I hope that you guys are staying home and you guys are staying safe and that all your families are doing well. My topic for today is going to be alternative medicine and the use and controversy of it. So I hope that you guys can learn something from my topic. So before I begin, I just wanted to give a quick disclaimer. The alternative medicine that I will be talking about today is not to be confused with Vicks. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I come from a Hispanic household and I can't even count how many times I've heard put some Vicks on it. And I don't know if you guys have heard the same thing, but I've heard it countless times. If you cut your finger, put some Vicks on it. If you have a pimple, put some Vicks on it. If you broke your ankle, put some Vicks on it. I don't know. It's a big thing in my household. I don't know if it's in yours, but that is not what I'm going to be talking about today. Although it is effective. What is alternative medicine? So one thing that I learned regarding this topic, and just the controversy surrounding it, one thing that I found very interesting is there's different terms regarding alternative medicine, and I was a little confused a bit at first because there were just different categories, and so I'm just gonna try to explain it, and hopefully you can understand it. So one thing I want to talk about first is conventional, aka Western medicine. And this type of medicine is just the mainstream medicine that we see here. So whenever you go to the clinic, you go to the hospital, and the doctor prescribes you with some pharmaceutical drugs, that is what conventional medicine is. They call it Western medicine, but what I will let it be known as is conventional medicine. That's what I'm going to be discussing. That's what I'm going to call it. So there's different categories of alternative medicine. One is integrative health, and this is primarily on patient-focused approach, on giving a patient-focused approach. And this has to do with emotional focus. It can have with mental focus, and it can also be part of spiritual focus. I'm not going to really go into that today. I just wanted to give a little point of that. There's also traditional medicine, and this focuses on the combination of plant, animal substances, and mineral-based practices. This is used a lot in ancient China, and it's still used in Chinese culture today. I just wanted to bring that up. And finally, complementary and alternative medicine, which is what I'm going to be discussing. So CAM is what I'm going to be referring to it for short. The term CAM covers many different types of therapies. Characteristically, these therapies are not based on scientific findings or theories, and they're not offered to the public healthcare system. Though we are aware that there's differences between countries, they call it different things. Actually, some jurisdictions opted for different designations, and they did this in a way to underline that it's not to be included with medicine. And the way that they see it is there's conventional medicine, and that's really the only type of medicine. For example, in Portugal, it's commonly called non-conventional therapeutics. And in France, actually, it is referred to as unconventional practices with a therapeutic aim. So the decision for one to choose CAM, it's really influenced by social factors. It could be economic factors. There's disease-related factors, and it could just be patient-focused factors. People may want to opt out of the norm of mainstream medicine, and they may want to choose a more natural approach to curing, relieving pain, or healing anything having to do with their health. Users have distinguished CAM as either treat when I say treat, I mean a lot of people sometimes go to get these alternative medicine options, and it's really just an enjoyable luxury for no particular help needed. With the examples that I'm going to be discussing, some of them are more of a treat. There's also treatment, and this is really used to relieve any pain, to cure any sickness, or to prevent any possible health problems. Some examples of alternative methods. One particularly popular example is acupuncture. It was developed in China, and this involves the insertion of very thin needles pierced through specific parts of the body. I know that that sounds scary, but it's actually not painful. These points signify the balance of flow of energy, or qi as they refer it to, and it just flows through one's body. This is a key component of Chinese medicine, as I mentioned, that it was developed in China, centuries ago. This is meant to help with migraines, neck pain, back pain, lower back pain. It can help to relieve stress. It can help to relieve muscle pain. A lot of the times your body just contracts, and sometimes you need some stress to relieve it. There are disadvantages to this though. Your symptoms that you go in with, they may get worse when you come out of your visit. Treatment may also cause temporary changes to your appetite, to your sleep schedule. Sometimes it changes your bowel and urination patterns. You may not even have improvement with this. Another example is called a sobada, and I'm sure that most of you probably have not heard of what that means. Really, it's just a therapeutic massage. It's popularized in Central and South America. I know that I've heard of it constantly, and it's a very common thing in Central and South America. It's divided into two sections, one being prenatal massage, and this is really meant to help midwives. There's a lot of midwives are very common in developing countries, and they're meant to help with reproductive cycle when a woman is pregnant, and they go in. It really is just a deep tissue massage. The other section to this is used to manipulate the position of one's organs, and it sounds very strange, but there's a belief that whenever you twist or you move a certain way, that it may move the where your organs are situated. And so sometimes, usually this happens, usually somebody goes in if they've had an accident, or they fell, or they had some trauma in their body, and they go to these, they're called sobadores, and they get this therapeutic massage, and they use different types of oils. Other examples, I think that we all know what a chiropractor is. Most of us probably have been to one. I've been to one personally, and they help with relieving some stress within muscles, and it's really cool. They crack bones. I mean, if I put it in simple terms. There's also reflexology, and this involves applying different types of pressure to different points of the feet, of the hands, and the ears as well. This is based on a theory that these body parts are connected to organs and to some organ systems. For example, the palms, some parts of the feet are connected to the lungs. Some parts are connected to the kidneys, to the stomach, and it's a theory that if you apply certain pressure to that, it may help. For example, if you're having stomach issues, or your bowel syndrome, your bowels are irritated, you may just apply pressure to some areas. Some disadvantages to this: applying pressure at a wrong point may not give relief to the problem. and it actually may lead to the rise of another problem. It also reduces the problems. It may reduce the problem, but it cannot properly heal with conventional medicine. And like it doesn't completely cure the problem. And it also does not guarantee to cure someone's serious problems or anything that's like a critical stage of illness. So if somebody, and this is actually the thought of people that if you go to like to a reflexology place, that they can cure a serious illness of yours. Some other examples include homeopathy, and this involves the use of small amounts of natural substances like plants and animals, and this is done to stimulate a healing practice. Treatments are typically made from poison ivy, crushed whole bees, and an herb called arnica. Some disadvantages to this. There's no proven scientific studies that can back up the positive effects of the treatment of homeopathy. It's not advertised by any local drug agencies in any country, and it is actually very costly since one treatment might not be enough. You may need to go in for multiple treatments, and it becomes costly. Another example is herbal medicine, and it's a type of dietary supplement. This involves the use of plants. Plants are rich in a variety of compounds that have been used in medications for thousands of years, from phenols to antibiotics to new emerging cancer treatments that are naturally occurring compounds, and they may be an excellent source of healing for modern medicine. But the problem with herbal medicine is that they are not FDA approved. They haven't passed any safety regulations. Therefore, you do pose a risk if you were to partake in herbal medicine. So the origins of alternative medicine. Alternative medicine has been around. It's not a new phenomenon. Ancient Chinese medicine has been popular in Asia for over 2,000 years. There's different regions in Asia that have been using it, and this is not anything new. They've been using plant-based and natural herbal practices and just natural medicine. Mayans have also been practicing herbal medicine since their time, and they mainly believed in using hallucinogens, and they believed in a lot of spiritual and mind altering, but they also used plant medicine. Here in the West, it was until the 1970s that there was an increased interest in alternative medicine and the different types of ways to approach curing and health. And so I believe that one of the biggest reasons that this was popularized in that time is this was during the hippie movement, and I think a lot of people were wanting to go for the more natural approach, and during that time, this is when there was more information, more ideas started to come out about it. So there are health policies and medical liability surrounding this. Like I did mention, there is no scientific proof regarding any of these practices. There is a lot of lack of regulation. Currently, patients that look for any complementary and alternative methods, they can be putting themselves in a reckless situation due to the lack of regulation and the inability of courts to deal with medical malpractices of any complementary and alternative medicinal practitioners. There's fraudulent practices. There's a lot of misleading information that people are reading about. There's so much of it. People will read one thing and they think, oh wow, this can be helpful to me, but really it's just misleading. There's been improper treatments, as well as the standard of care is not very clear. There is a standard of care for anyone, and this specifies on appropriate treatment based on scientific evidence and collaboration between medical and or psychological professionals involved in the treatment of a given condition. In 1997, the Gonzalez regimen, it was a cancer treatment, and it included vitamins, it included some mineral substances, coffee enemas, and it even included extracts from some animal organs. And really the whole thing of this was that they could cure cancer, that these treatments were able to cure cancer. The problem was that none of these were, they proved efficient in cancer treatment. There weren't many studies, and the very few studies that were available had conflicts and problems within the studies, and there was just no sufficient information. The Gonzalez regimen was hit with a lawsuit, and the Supreme Court, they ruled that any complementary and alternative medical practitioner, they must comply with the same standard of care that's applicable to any Western medicine or any doctor. So this is really just to prevent from any hypothetical solutions. This helps protect the complementary and alternative medical practitioner in protecting them, and this also helps the patient in not being misled by any information or not given any type of hope that they can be cured by this type of treatment, when in reality it may not even be possible. Regarding religion, different religions have different views on medicine. I wanted to look at what the Bible says about this, and I did find a few scriptures that mentioned oils. And for example, Luke 10:34 says, "He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine." In Isaiah 38:21, it mentions, "Make anointment from figs and spread it over the boil." And one thing I found that most of these scriptures regarding medicine said there were a lot of oils and balms and salves used during this time, and neither Christianity nor Judaism have an extensive healing tradition, and these religions don't tend to form part of any alternative medicine complex. But I did find it interesting that regardless, they didn't have medicine. This was their type of medicine. They used oils and they used balms, and they made them usually out of plants, out of some branches, and that was the way that they used medicine. I did find some data, and this information comes from the influence of complementary and alternative medicine on medication adherence in Honduras. I thought it was really interesting. I don't tend to find articles written I did mention in my introduction that I am from Honduras, and I don't tend to find any information. And so it was really interesting to find not only information from my country, but country from a developing country, information from a developing country. So this survey took place in Tegucigalpa, which is the capital, and it's one of the biggest cities in Honduras. So the researchers, they went door to door. They surveyed 614 Hondurans that were aged 18 years old and above. They went to neighborhoods. They were primarily lower and middle income families. And so one question that was asked was, have you ever used complementary and alternative medicine? And if you have, what specific type of complementary and alternative medicine did you use? And one thing that was interesting is that 41% had never used alternative medicine, but there was a 58.6% that were able to use, that have used a type of complementary and alternative medicine. And one of the ones that I found that were that I had talked about, massage, which it specifically says Sobada, but that's what it is, and that was at a 21.4%. For herbal medicine, that's at a 44.8%. And for acupuncture, that was at a 1.2%. It's interesting to know that, or to research that in developing countries, it's very popular to use alternative medicine. And I was reading into it, and it has to do with a lot of them don't have affordable health care, which is also applies to here in the United States. But they also are very natural, and they go to more plant-based things and natural-based things. And I think it goes along with their culture. The culture I come from is very about nature, and so I feel like that's a big influence in how people perceive medicine and how people just look at other different types of alternatives. Another survey that I found came from Columbia University. It was done in a group of college students, and the question that was asked was whether they have tried any form of complementary and alternative medicine. So it was a random stratified sample of 2,500 or so graduates and undergraduates, and nearly 82% of the students that responded reported to using at least one form of complementary and alternative medicine within the last 12 months. This study was done for the purpose of administrators finding out more information on is this a popular thing, and should we implement it within our health services and programs. But I thought it was interesting to see that there are students who are also taking the approach of finding more information and taking different alternatives to it. So some attitudes regarding alternative medicine and complementary and alternative medicine. If you were to ask a doctor what their thoughts on complementary and alternative medicine are, or integrative health or traditional medicine, most of them probably will not completely agree with it. They may disapprove of the use of it, and the reason why is complementary and alternative medicine offers no scientific proof. It offers no scientific background. There's no research. It may be untested, and so a lot of the times it's difficult for them to grasp on and believe the effects that it may have on people due to the fact that there's just no scientific evidence. One reason why there are some people who are looking towards alternative methods is because they can't, due to economic stability, and it's difficult to afford health care, and so a lot of the times they look into alternatives to find that. And I think there's a big rise in being more plant-based and natural-based regarding the world right now, and I think that that's a big play in why alternative medicine is on the rise. One thing that I found interesting is that Americans have spent over $30 billion on alternative medicine, and none was covered by healthcare. So it's kind of an interesting paradigm that you have people choosing to not to go to a different route, and choosing alternative medicine, thinking that it may be less costly, but in the end there's a lot of money being spent on it. One other thing that I found interesting is there are certain cultures and religions that do thrive on alternative medicine, and they have been doing those practices for their entire existence. Native Americans have been doing it since their ancestors started. Buddhism and Sufi religion, they rely on alternative medicine, and they've been practicing alternative medicine for a long time. the big controversy is that there's no research, since there's no biological or chemical reaction that happens in the body that allows for scientists to study this and allows for there to be a proof of it. I think it's interesting. That was my most favorite thing reading upon this topic, is that there's so much controversy, and there's pros and cons and disadvantages and advantages. Regardless, everyone has their own opinion and everybody has their own say, and it may work for some, it may not work for others. Some people may be for it, some people may be against it, and I think that was really interesting about this entire topic. I look forward to your discussions and reading about him, and seeing what you guys all think about it. I hope that you guys have a great rest of the semester and that you stay safe, and hopefully we see each other soon. Thank you guys.